Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our last Community Planner Forum of 2021. We have a pretty full agenda today, but just as a reminder, I know we've been doing these virtual meetings for a while now, but while we have a presentation, please remember to mute your microphone. If you want to use your camera, it'd be great to see you. If you don't want to, that's also fine. And please feel free to use the chat function to ask questions. And I apologize, but I have to hold one moment. And I'm back. Sorry for that. So if you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat or raise your hand or unmute yourself to ask. And also, all of our meetings are recorded and we're being live streamed to our YouTube channel today. So we're going to start with introductions. I'll go through my screen who I see, and if you can just introduce yourself and who you're representing today, and we'll start with Steve. Steve, you're muted.
Thank you, Jen. Sorry, quick on the click. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me. I'm sorry I missed some prior meetings, but look forward to today's great agenda. Thank you.
Great. And then I see Mark Castiglione.
Hey, Mark Castiglione, Cdrpc. Happy to be here.
Hi, Mark. And Andy.
Yeah, hi guys. I'm a new planner here at Colony, and so I just got the link and just trying to introduce myself, say hi, and listen in.
Great. Welcome, Andy. Lindsay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lindsay Buck. I'm the senior planner for the town of Stillwater.
Great. And Andrew.
Andrew Kreshik, planner for the city of Troy.
Liz.
Liz Cormos, trustee, Village of Ballston Spa.
And Catherine.
As in Lawson?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
Associate professor at the University of Albany and the director of the Albany Visualization and Informatics Lab.
Great. Linda.
Linda Vonderheide, Rensselaer County Principal Planner.
And Peter.
Peter Comenzo with the planner with the town of Rotterdam.
Steve.
Steve Streichman, Commissioner Planning, City of Troy.
Audrey.
Audrey Bernison, New York State Department of Transportation, Region 1 Planning Unit.
Anna. Anna, you're muted.
Oh, apologies. I'm filling in for Adam Migelski, town of East Greenbush.
Great. And Kate. Kate Maynard, you're muted. Okay, we'll skip Kate. Joe.
Hi, Joe Seaman Graves, city planner for Cohoes.
And Melissa. Melissa, you're muted. Okay. Melissa Cherubino is from the town of Glenville. And Mark Surdam.
Good morning, everybody. Mark Surdam, supervisor, town of Hoosick.
Great. Welcome. Sandy.
Hi, good morning. Sandy Miswitz, Executive Director of the Capital District Transportation Committee.
And Rima.
Hello, everyone. This is Rima Shamia. I'm a transportation planner at CDTC.
Great. Okay. Did I miss anybody? I apologize if I did. Okay. So just some updates for CDTC and our current office situation. We're now open Monday through Friday. Staff can be reached in the office now, and we are allowing visitors mostly by appointment. We're wearing masks in public spaces. We do continue to hold meetings, mostly virtual. Our planning committee and policy board are doing a hybrid type of model where some people are coming to meet in person and some are participating virtually. We're testing this to see how, we want to continue doing meetings beyond the pandemic if this ever ends. And we continue to monitor public health guidelines and follow the county and state guidelines. So like I said, we have quite a few things on the agenda today, but we're going to start with a presentation by Steve Ayaketa on the Albany Airport Master Plan. So I'm just going to switch to a different PowerPoint. And can everyone see the master plan PowerPoint screen?
Looks good. Thanks, Jen.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks. So we'll hand it to you, Steve.
Well, thanks so much, Jen. Good morning, everyone. Sorry I didn't properly introduce myself as manager in planning and engineering here at the Albany International Airport, serving the Albany County Airport Authority. Been here since 91. Before that, I was Albany County planner, project manager for the Albany County Civic Center. And so I've been in public works construction management for a long time, going on 4 decades now. And this is very exciting as a master plan, first in over 2.5 decades for this airport. We're ranked about 80th in the national system of airports. You can click through a couple of slides, Jen. Let's see what's the next one. I'm just giving you a quick background on our place here at Albany. We are the 80th largest airport on passenger enplanements and also strong in cargo. We're ahead of Rochester, Syracuse, other similar city-size airports, and the largest airport in New York State, second only to Buffalo, which picks up a lot of Toronto metropolitan traffic. So that's our place in the world of airports. I'm constantly managing both development projects. Airports are edge cities, and we're right in the geographic centroid of our region, and our market area is 15 counties, a little larger than the CDTC 4 counties. But it's a great opportunity just to share with you the airport planner's view, and I've been here since 1991. Very exciting, and I appreciate your support in every way. The master plan is federal funded, 100% federal. You can keep clicking a couple of slides here. What I'm sharing with you on slides, and thank you, Jen, for covering it for me, is what was shared with the elected officials, our congressional delegation, RPI president, Shirley Jackson, and a lot of the economic leaders of our region as the regional advisory committee. There's side to that and the same slideshow for the technical advisory committee, more the planners and so on. If you're welcome to joining our planning advisory, technical advisory committee, you're very welcome. I know Mark Castiglione of our group this morning was in attendance for this. Sorry for any redundancy, Mark, but I'll give you my spin on it this time. It was our chief executive, and Matt Cannon is director of development and government affairs. My focus is on project management and planning, and I am the liaison to Federal Aviation Administration daily. That's a heavy task. They are the largest bureaucracy in federal government, second only to the Pentagon, Department of Defense, with all branches of the military. FAA is huge, and so I'm the liaison, covering a lot of red tape and always a dozen grants. FAA is strongly funding us with the dedicated Aviation Trust Fund, the last dedicated fund in the federal financial system. OMB auditors are here in residence this week, and I'm working closely with them as well. So we're going strong. We're largest airport upstate, as I mentioned, second only to Buffalo. We're seeing restoration of our normal passenger activity. We normally handle 5,000 passengers a day, roughly, and I've been sharing with Sandy and Mark our daily gate counts. We're coming back up to about 4,000 a day. That equates to 3 million ticketed passengers per year, just to feel like the big numbers of what we're actually seeing in ticketed passenger. The other half of it is belly freight, and air cargo, which is a strong component of this master plan. Let's see, forecast of activity is that we'll be back to 2019 normal levels by 2024, 2025. FAA is a little more conservative. We're seeing a restoration. It's highly variable. As Jen mentioned in the opening remarks, the new variants are having some economic impact, and so we're taking a cautious approach. Masks are, of course, mandatory. Just today's news, international travel is a warning for Canadian travelers once again. So it's very dynamic, and we're watching the news closely, and it does affect our regional economy. When I started as airport planner, we generated about $400 million a year. Now, regional data, we're approaching $1 billion a year in economic spinoff. So I'm sharing with you the big planner's view, high altitude, 10,000 feet. Let's see, here's the outline. I mentioned forecast. Terminal requirements will be a special focus. We have a brief video to share with you on that. We can click to the next couple of slides. Keep going, keep going. Thank you, Jen. Regional Advisory Committee members, here's the master planning process. Let's hold on the process for a minute, Jen. Just highlight on the process, the flow. Next slide. Okay, we are current status. We've completed the existing planometrics, which was challenging because we haven't touched it in a few decades. Keeping everything in sync with our actual field conditions. There's been a lot of progress advancing technology for energy efficiency. We have a building numbering system of about 80 buildings on our 1,200 acres here in the center of Colony and center of our region, geographic centroid. Schenectady about 5 miles west, Troy 5 miles east, Albany 5 miles south, so we're right in the middle. There are wildlife hazard management requirements. There are many safety requirements. So my role is to preserve and enhance aeronautical safety and capacity for the time-critical movements of passengers and goods through our 15-county primary market area. We can go to the next slide, Jen, thank you. So we're about a quarter to a third into the master planning process following the FAA paradigm. I mentioned this is 100% FAA funded. It's about a $800,000 study is the cost on this. The consultant is CHA with a long history here at Albany, joined with Gensler and Jacob Daniels, our consulting team experts, well respected with FAA. So, and enplanement is a departing ticketed passenger only. You double that for total ticketed passengers. So 2019 was a normal year, and we had 3 million ticketed passengers. The virtual total shutdown occurred March 20th of 2020, as you may recall. And we sold more donuts at Dunkin' Donuts than we had passengers on April 15th. So we're coming back. We're watching it closely. I was here for the tragic events of September 11th, 2001. That was the last prior total shutdown of the National Aeronautical System. Secretary of Transportation Norman Mineta at that time directed every pilot, wherever you are in the sky, and there's always 3,000 aircraft over American airspace and over the Atlantic, land at the nearest airport. That's a mandatory directive. So Nova Scotia got most of our Atlantic traffic, and there's a lot of history here. It's very dynamic transportation paradigm, 3,000 flights at any minute of the day on average in American airspace. And right now we're about 4,000 passengers a day at Albany. We can keep clicking through, Jen. I don't want to go beyond the 15, 20-minute guidelines for our, so I hope everyone's getting back to traveling domestic at least. There's some international travel opening up. I know some people are going to Europe. In these regional and tech meetings, there was 5 or 10 minutes of discussion. We'll save that for the end if anyone wants to share their input and guidance, and you're welcome to join our TAC meetings coming up. Keep clicking, Jen. I'm trying to get through about 30 slides in less than 20 minutes. So this is a great opportunity to share our joined community vision for the smart airport of the future, energy efficient, smart and sustainable growth, a lot of progress on the noise front, a lot of progress on the energy efficient front. We've got solar panels charging our electric vehicle charging stations. We're up to 32 stations, soon to be 60 stations. So we're pushing on the EV front. We've got clean fuels. I'm very active in the Capital District Clean Communities. Look forward to our meeting this afternoon at 2. Cargo is an important component. Our jumbo aircraft are based at our cargo terminal. Those are highly efficient Boeing 757 wide-body aircraft. So we'll keep clicking, Jen, trying to get through 30 slides. Activity forecast, keep clicking. So we're going out 20 years as a typical master plan. We can keep clicking and come back at the end for Q&A if you like. So I'm just hitting the high points as shared last week with our regional and technical committee. We're following the FAA terminal area forecast, which was conservative, as I mentioned, for full recovery by 2025. We can keep clicking, Jen. Historical activity, employments, I did touch on this already. So we're up around 4,000 passengers a day. Keep going, next slide. Aircraft is the second dynamic component of our fleet mix. We always have to change our facilities here for ever-changing fleet mix. The carriers, we're preserving competition among 7 or 8 competing air carriers. They all have different fleets. They are planning for hydrogen and LNG aircraft, clean energy aircraft of the future, even electric aircraft. So this is a very dynamic component. We need to change our facilities to accommodate the fleet mix, which is always changing. So next slide. Commercial activity forecasts. There is an ever-increasing demand for travel. This has been proven over many decades, over the past century. Our position in Albany, we are the oldest municipal-owned airport in the country, in the nation. Governor Theodore Roosevelt, later President Teddy Roosevelt, had a son, Quentin Roosevelt, and the Quentin Roosevelt Field was Albany Municipal Airport on Westerlo Island in Albany, 1908 to 1928. 1928, they needed larger facilities, and the historic Watervliet Shakers helped build the first airport here. So I'm sharing with you the planner's view of our history. So there's a lot of infrastructure in the ground, and growth over the century of aviation is very strong. 33% passenger growth over a 20-year period is predicted, and this is conservative on FAA numbers once again. So these are federal paradigm I'm sharing with you. Next slide. More summary stuff. We can come back to it if you like. Go ahead, Jen. Keep cruising through until we get up to the video, which is about a 4-minute video of. Let's see. So the terminal shortcomings I want to touch on. This is one focus area of our terminal. I was here for the federal funded construction back in 1998. Now it's over 22 years old. They don't build buildings like they used to, and a lot of systems need replacement. Got 22 elevators, escalators. They all need replacement. They're about $1 million a piece. Security checkpoint is constrained. You need social distancing, obviously, now. So this airport, current airport built in 98, was before the tragic events of September 11th, 01, and before COVID pandemic plague safety requirements and security requirements are continuing. More passengers want to try and board aircraft carrying loaded pistols. And of course, that is very forbidden. Numbers are trending upward on that. So the TSA function is more important than ever, is my point there. So new terminal, keep clicking, Jen, we'll get to the video on the new terminal. Shortcomings are we don't have the required screening. Our lines back up into the garage across the pedestrian bridge that you see, our climate controlled bridge. So we need to improve the overall user experience. And we are currently planning for major reconstruction of this security checkpoint and front entrance of the terminal you see in the lower image to improve every aspect of our air traveler experience. Next slide. Let's see. So proposed funding, we're an applicant for the state's 2021 Upstate Airport Economic Development Competition, which established over $250 million available. Statewide, we think we're a contender. We didn't get a big part of prior state funding, so this is still pending funding. We have federal support that could support design, but I think we're in a holding position awaiting the full funding package before we advance. Next slide. So we're in a T configuration terminal, as you may know, with a central security checkpoint. We can keep going through the slides. I want to get to the video. So the central hub just barely accommodates existing capacity. Airside facilities, on the other hand, we could see a tripling of our airside capacity with no constraints, but we are constrained in the central terminal hub. Keep clicking, Jen. I want to get to the video. So this is where all the action is. It's our Times Square, as we refer to it in airport parlance. So we've got 7 vestibules at the front curb, the big drop-off area. Our current administration is very rapidly advancing, state-of-the-art, beautiful landscaping in every way. We're a garden city. As you approach the airport, you see LED efficient lighting and lighted gardens on your approach. You pay attention to aesthetic details. We've made a lot of improvements just in the last year or two. So the concept is to address the deficiencies right in the central area. Let's get to the video, Jen. Next slide. Ground level current, you're familiar with. The rotunda gets replaced. Go ahead. And here's the new vision for the expanded, much improved terminal security checkpoint, meter greeter area. New expanded vestibules along the curb, new expanded comfortable spacing in the queuing area that now is backing up into the parking garage. So let's see, is the video link there, Jen, somewhere here? We're just showing a few slides of the existing conditions. Go ahead. Are we close?
I can get right to the video if you want. Let me just.
Yeah, that's fine. These are all existing condition slides that people are probably familiar with if you've flown Albany. Here we go.
Okay.
Mark Egan, Chamber of Commerce. It's a YouTube video. And these are available. Let me give a plug to our alb-master-plan.com website. All these, everything you see on this slideshow and both slideshows and other supporting documents are available on that website I mentioned today, alb-master-plan.com is our website. Go ahead, Jen.
Yep, I'm trying to get, okay, hold on one second.
That's fine. Should I keep talking a little bit on background?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Thanks so much. So yeah, prepare your questions for the end. I'm more than halfway through what I intend to share with you this morning, just giving you the high points, airport planners view on our place in the world. And it is an exciting place to be. Time flies at the airport along with everything else. And I was here for the last major terminal construction where we built a new terminal on top of the old 1959 terminal.
Okay, I can play the video whenever you're ready.
Please. Thank you, Jen.
Sure.
About 4 minutes.
National Airport will include an expansion of the terminal walkway and building to address post 9/11 and COVID-19 challenges.
Audio is not coming through.
Yeah, Jen, we can't hear it.
You can't hear it?
So right before you share your screen, Jen, there's an option checkbox in the lower left that says share computer audio, and that should work, I think.
Oh. Okay, let's try this. I'm so sorry.
Areas, outdoor green spaces,
can hear it now.
An interactive family center, an innovation and technology incubator, and an expanded business center to create a transformative new regional gateway that will enhance the travel experience, stimulate economic growth and development, and promote the upstate region.
It is the gateway for our employees and customers, and it connects us around the nation as well as into the global economy.
This airport plays such a critical role. It literally connects us to markets across the country and across the globe.
And I think, quite frankly, for many people coming from all different parts of the country, to walk into what is planned here and what we're looking to support will be a very welcoming opportunity for individuals and make them feel comfortable.
Having confidence that passengers are well protected is extremely important for the future of the airport and the entire capital region.
The easier it is to travel through this airport means more people are going to utilize it.
It is essentially the first impression that people are going to get when they come to Global Foundries or to other companies in this area. So it's really important that we create a positive experience for them.
It's critically important we get them here with a full-service airport with all the amenities. But when they get here, we want them to make sure what they see is the best that we can possibly give them.
It is so important to have an airport that not just represents Albany County, but represents all of upstate New York.
If it's your first time that you're coming to the airport, or you've come here for generations, it's going to be a wow.
I think the expansion of the Albany International Airport is going to be an incredible welcoming for people as they travel into this region.
As a world-class technological research university, we draw talent from across the nation and from around the world. In fact, the world is part of our classrooms.
You know, right from the onset of the pandemic, our airport showed, really through its actions, you know, it demonstrated that they weren't a follower, but they were a leader amongst airports.
It's so important to continue to grow the airport in the direction it's been going.
As the restrictions of the pandemic start to ease, a return to safe air travel will provide those opportunities to share Rensselaer expertise and knowledge more widely.
Having this expansion in place at the airport will give people more confidence in the ability to travel safely.
So it's incumbent upon us to make sure that their first experience, their first impression is an extremely positive one, and they're more likely to use it for business in the future.
Make them feel that they've arrived in a region that has it all moving in the right direction. We've seen some great successes here in the capital region over the years, and I always point back to those infrastructure investments that were critical to opening up the world to visit the capital region.
Albany International Airport and New York's capital region are going places.
I think that was well produced. And the last thing I'd like to cover, it's almost 10 o'clock, is some of the airside requirements, and we'll go to maybe 4 or 5 minutes of Q&A if you're willing, Jen. So let's click to the next slide and share with you on the air side. There's two sides of airport planning, air side and land side. While the terminal pre-checkpoint is land side, all the approaches to the airport are land side, outside the fence is land side. And then there's the ever important security fence, and that's air side. So airfield capacity, I mentioned, could triple to support ever growing demand, larger aircraft in particular. This slide shows comparison of airfield requirements. Navigational aids are both owned by the Airport Authority and also by the FAA. Airfield lighting, we're rapidly converting to 100% LED energy efficient lighting, all runway and taxiway edge lights, for instance. If you drive by here at night, it's a very picturesque, brightly colored field of reds and blues and all the navigational aids that make sense to the pilots moving these scheduled service aircraft and general aviation aircraft through our airport area. Maintaining airspace obstructions is a big part of my job as airport planner. For the runway approaches, it's a very low approach to each of 4 runways. It is a 50-to-1 approach surface. That's 1 foot vertical and 50 feet horizontal, or 2 feet vertical and 100 feet horizontal. So it goes out in all directions from each runway on extended runway center lines. That's important to keep in mind. Colony and other Albany and other nearby municipal planners, please keep in mind. Temporary obstructions include cranes, and we need a lot of planning coordination with FAA to assure ongoing safety and avoid calamity. And this is called for the protection of persons and property on the ground. With that, what's the last slide, Jen? Let's wrap it up and get to Q&A because it is 10 o'clock right now. We covered forecast. There'll be another meeting of both committees by February. And meanwhile, our website is up and we've got a lot of open discussion. Feel free to call me at any time. Next slide. All right, open discussion, great. So you can reach me at my last name, Ayaketa, at albanyAirport.com, 242-2238. It's my direct desk. I am here every day. We never left the airport throughout the pandemic. Essential workers, we all showed up with our masks and fax cards and everything else. So we're here for you. So how many questions would you like, Jen? You want to cap it at 5 or 6 or?
Sure. If anyone has any questions and they want to put it in the chat, they can do that, or raise their hand or unmute. Please feel free to do that now. This is, I mean, it looks like a really ambitious, project to really fundamentally change the look and the flow of the airport. So this is an exciting project. I'm wondering, we have the new airport exit, and there's been ongoing work on creating more connections after the facility update. Does the airport envision more efforts like create connections between the airport and the region and surrounding towns and downtowns, or am I getting ahead of things?
Not at all, Jen. There's great opportunity, and our existing deficiencies noted for bicycle and pedestrian access. The state Canal Recreation Way, Empire Trail, also known as the Hudson Bikeway that we started 30 years ago. And it was exciting to see how that has evolved to a wonderful statewide system now. How do you get from the Hudson Bikeway to the airport? Frankly, you can't safely. Steep topography on the roads from State Route 7. We're only about 60% connected for the bicycle pedestrian network. We're extremely well connected for vehicular approaches, both cargo and passenger meter and greeter vehicles, but we're open to further collaboration, and we'll make sure we include in this master plan a vision for connecting the State Empire Trail to the airport. Some people want to fly with their folding bicycles, so I'm well aware of that. Any other thoughts for connectivity, intermodal, energy efficiency? We're very, very open to your thoughts now. This is a shared vision for the next 20 years.
There's a question in the chat. Andrew asked, what is the biggest obstacle to runway length extension?
Thanks, Andrew. Our current runways, I have managed 2 runway extension projects, which are very challenging. Our current runways are more than adequate for any aircraft needing to land at Albany. FAA is, in fact, going the other way. The national standard for taxiways has been 75-foot width on taxiways. They say all new taxiways must be only 50 foot in width. So we can accommodate the wide body aircraft that are based here, primarily for cargo now. The 3 757s up in the cargo ramp for FedEx and UPS. There's both intermodal truck-to-plane transfer, plane-to-plane transfer from small Cessna Caravans to those. But our runway lengths are fine. The obstacle that we have surmounted 12 years ago were non-compatible land uses in the runway approaches, residences and businesses on State Route 7. And I was involved with a voluntary acquisition of nearly 100 fee simple acquisitions and some easements included in that number, Andrew. Thanks for the question. We can more than triple our airside capacity with the current runway length of 8,500 on the primary runway and 7,200 on the crosswind, which is necessary when there's a high wind out of the west, which is about almost a third of our aircraft operations on the crosswind. 7,200 and 8,500 foot length is more than adequate for current capacity demand and future. Did I answer it?
That sounds good to me. I guess, does anyone else have any other questions? I have one more question if no one else does.
Thanks, good. Yeah.
Okay. So, recently we heard a lot about like supply chain constraints and issues, and I'm wondering, if that impacted the air cargo side or if you've seen any changes because of that.
Yes, good question. Air cargo is up 10% over the normal year, 2018, 2019. More people are shopping online. More people are sitting at home and shopping online and ordering all their, big box, Amazon, whatever, not to plug anybody, but so air cargo is up. Just in time demand for manufacturing is up. There are issues with this capacity demand that was never before seen. Obviously noted. Tony Vassell gave a good overview of that for CDTC in our planning committee on how it's affecting marine intermodal to truck, with the conditions at the ports of entry, Long Beach and other major ports with nearly 100 ships offshore, unable to, they're beyond capacity with increased demand. And there are some staffing issues as well. And we see that with some of our airport specific commodities. We need to buy large snow plows. We've got a fleet of, over 50 heavy duty equipment. So everything's slowed down from a normal 1 year lead time to 2 years lead time is one thing that we see on special components. Electronics are also challenging. We all share the same economic challenges, but it's, from what we're hearing, a capacity constraint at the marine ports of entry, I believe, and truckers also have some issues, but we're hearing that on the freight committee. Anyway,
Great.
that's the airport view.
Thanks, Steve. Okay, any last questions for Steve?
Okay, thanks for this opportunity, everyone. Feel free to call, and we look forward to your shared vision on the master plan.
Thanks, Steve. Okay, so our next agenda item is on the bipartisan infrastructure law that was recently passed, and Sandy has a couple of slides she's just going to go through to update everyone, kind of show the highlights of that and how that might impact the capital region.
Thanks, Jen. Good morning, everybody. Let me share my screen. Okay. Hopefully you can see the first slide. So I'm not, some of you may have seen this presentation by Ron Epstein of New York State Department of Transportation at our recent policy board meeting. I am not going to go through it in the level of detail today that he did. I see 2 thumbs up from Mark. No, totally hear you. But I am just going to touch upon a few of the key items that would be of most interest to our region and the fund sources and the potential resources available to us here in the Capital District. So the overview of what is now being called the bipartisan infrastructure law or bill, which is another terrible acronym because it could be referring to any federal transportation bill, but we'll go with it. It covers, it expands the program to a $1.2 trillion program that includes more than just transportation. It includes broadband and drinking and wastewater infrastructure and other types of infrastructure, including airports that Steve just gave an overview for. I think some of the key provisions that are new or sort of reinforced under this administration are related to climate resilience and the emphasis on bridges and culverts. Those 3 programs, topic areas you'll see throughout the bill really do receive some additional attention and are things that we can think about here in the capital region. What this legislation also did was sort of reauthorize what is known as the FAST Act. That's the current, up until November 15th, it was the current federal transportation law that CDTC operates under. The baseline formula for funding of the reauthorization continued the funding levels that are in existence in 2021, and then added an additional $274 billion of new commitments. And of that $274 billion, the federal government increased contract authority, was just a fancy way of saying that we can do more. And $184 billion in new direct appropriations for a number of programs. The main ones that I think that in the big picture of what we're talking about here in the infrastructure law is highway transit safety, obviously rail, FAA, the airport, and there's other program categories as well. But the ones that CDTC mostly engages with is the highway transit and the safety side. But what this legislation did for our funding programs is pull $383 billion, of which, again, that $293 billion is baseline funding, and added more contract authority to that. So there is more guaranteed money for these programs, not as much subject to federal appropriation, because as you know, just because the legislation authorizes certain funding levels, it doesn't always mean that they've been appropriated in the national budget. So what does this mean for New York State? In high level terms, the bill versus the FAST Act for highway and bridge programs increased the funding opportunities, I should say, by about 52%. On the transit side, it increased it about 35%. That sounds like a lot, but as Ron Epstein presented to our policy board, keep in mind a handful, 3 or 4 very, very large billion-dollar projects in New York State can take the lump sum of that increase right off the top. So if you think of how we're going to, as a state, fund the interstate project in I-81, if that were to be funded, you know, that would take a big chunk of this increase right off the top. So what we think it means for CDTC, there may be some slight increase in our capital program, but we don't think we're going to see 50 or 30, 40, 50% increases in our federal aid program here locally. These are the appropriations numbers, and you know, this is all the different programs that federal funding is supporting. The ones that CDTC mostly engages with directly is the National Highway Performance Program. That program funds projects typically on what we call our principal arterial system and our national highway system, which includes the interstates. So sort of think of those higher order roads. That's where most of the NHPP money goes. The Surface Transportation Program is our most flexible fund source. It's the one many local communities utilize to do complete streets projects and a whole range of bicycle, pedestrian oriented projects. It also includes the Transportation Alternatives Programs, which is a set aside underneath this program. And the Highway Safety Improvement Program funds, as the name implies, safety projects. The Metropolitan Planning Program funds CDTC's planning activities. So this is a program that obviously funds most of our CDTC activities. And to simplify this for this group, these are the 5-year funding totals in the authorized within the legislation by the fund source. So as I said, the NHPP, SDP, HSIP are competitive fund sources that we typically program at CDTC's table during the Transportation Improvement Program update, which we are in the midst of working on right now. The Rail Crossings Program is a specific DOT program that deals with rail crossing safety. So we often get lists of small projects related to rail crossings that we include in the Transportation Improvement Program that utilizes this fund source. The CMAQ program is part of that Transportation Alternatives Program solicitation that many of you have recently applied for. We CDTC, we don't have direct access to the CMAQ funding to program locally here at the CDTC table, but obviously any project that's awarded TAP CMAQ funding gets added to our TIP using that fund source. Planning is obviously our Metropolitan Planning funds. The National Highway Freight Program is another program that is a little more competitive in nature, but it funds projects directly related to freight. 2 new programs and one further emphasized program. There's a new carbon reduction program that really focuses on reducing emissions from transportation. So that's a new formula program that we don't know the specifics of yet in terms of whether CDTC will have direct access to it or whether this will be a statewide competitive program. That remains to be seen how it is implemented in New York State. Another program that's new is the Protect program. As the name implies, this is a resiliency program to protect our coastal areas and our vulnerable transportation infrastructure and other types of infrastructure. that are along coastlines or vulnerable to frequent flooding. So that program is intended to provide some resources to reinforce the resiliency of the transportation system. And as I said at the beginning, the bridges, particularly a new program for rural bridges, is really intended to target the backlog of maintenance and bridge replacements that are needed throughout New York State. So the biggest chunk of the funding, as you can see, the NHPP program, the STP program, and the HSIP program. So most of the funding pie is our fund sources that we program competitively here locally at the CDTC table. And you can see in this chart the percentages. 44% of the funding is for NHPP, 21% is for the STP, about a little under 5% goes to the HSIP. CMAC is really the next big chunk, 7.7. The new bridge program is 14%, and then the remaining, are all under, around 2-3%, 1 or 2%, I should say. So in terms of the growth, this is what, again, the estimates are for program area growth. The largest growth, again, being in the bridge program, because that is the main emphasis and main need here, particularly here in New York State. But you'll see that we did see increases in the NHPP and the STP funding, as well as the addition of these new program areas. So I don't want to talk through the specifics of everything. I'll just, again, give some very brief highlights. There's an increased emphasis on resiliency. So, again, raising, relocating roadways, addressing flood-prone areas in the NHPP program. The STP program increases eligibility to also include natural infrastructure to enhance resilience, installation of EV charging infrastructure, and that off-system bridge set-aside increased under the STP program. CMAC program eligibility was expanded to include our micro-mobility transportation options, so our bike shares or shared scooter systems, these types of programs. Again, there's more emphasis on the bridge program. This carbon reduction program, as I mentioned, eligible activities include a range of things from traffic monitoring to bike ped facilities to diesel retrofits, maybe even congestion pricing, encouraging transportation demand management activities. So a whole range of things with the intent of reducing the impact of transportation from the perspective of emissions and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Under the public transportation initiatives, it expands eligibility to include construction of bus rapid transit corridors and dedicated bus lanes, signal prioritization, and other integrated fare systems. The Protect program, again, talks about flood mitigation and mitigation from storm surge. And then this other new program specific to electric vehicle charging infrastructure. We don't yet know, again, whether this is a program CDTC will be implementing, then NISDOT will be implementing, or another entity. That remains to be seen. But again, it really does emphasize and support the deployment of EV infrastructure and technologies around New York State. And just in the interest of time, I just wanted to point out there's some new competitive programs. These will likely be nationally competitive programs that may allow New York State to submit for some larger projects. We can also consider developing applications for some of these programs locally. Among them are the nationally significant freight and highway projects, what's termed the infra grants, which allow for freight and intermodal projects. The continuation of what's now known as the RAISE program, the BUILD program, formerly the TIGER program. So these larger pots of funding that would allow us to do major bridge work, implement a major project, particularly in areas where you have disadvantaged populations. So the RAISE program specifically focuses on equity issues. And the PROTECT program we talked a little bit about, again, deals with at-risk coastal infrastructure. The Reconnecting Communities pilot program is a program that is of interest around here. This is the, what we would call the retrofitting or removal of whether it be interstates or other types of transportation infrastructure that could be repurposed. This is where the 787 discussion fits in. This program would really be offering additional planning resources to look at additional planning activities that can demonstrate the need for a change in some sort of transportation infrastructure that's really creating barriers of access or other barriers for a community. And it really does give priority to economically disadvantaged communities. Some other competitive programs that might be of interest to this group. The Healthy Streets program is a new competitive program. It's a 500 million nationwide. As you can imagine, is not a large amount of money, but again, this is sort of what we would term locally the green streets. This is really targeted at things that improve air quality, reduces impervious surfaces, green infrastructure, stormwater runoff, these sorts of treatments. The Safe Streets for All Users program is another new competitive program that is focusing on preventing death and serious injuries on roads and streets, with particular emphasis on pedestrians and bicyclists, and it provides some planning resources to focus on that. So I think in the interest of time, the last thing I do want to highlight is the Metropolitan Planning side of this house. There is an increase in our planning resources here at CDTC, and the bill does have some provisions. They are not mandatory provisions. These are optional provisions for planning, one of which relates to housing. And better coordinating transportation planning with housing. And what that might mean for CDTC is that we could address the integration of housing, transportation, and economic development strategies more directly in our regional transportation plan. We could develop some kind of a housing coordination plan for the region. Again, these are optional activities, but these are program areas that we may think about considering once we know more about the details. Another thing that is important to CDTC is that the new federal law requires the MPO to use 2.5% of our planning funds to carry out activities related to complete streets. We're probably spending well more than that as an MPO already, but what this law does is for those MPOs that aren't doing that, it now makes it a requirement. So that's an exciting change from the planning perspective in the bipartisan infrastructure law. So with that, I'm going to stop there because there's a lot of detail in the infrastructure law. Where things sit right now is we're waiting here at CDTC for New York State to develop the capital program instructions for our transportation improvement program update. That would give us some better indications as to how these funds are going to be allocated throughout the state and what resources CDTC will have to directly program projects here locally. We anticipate hopefully having those instructions in the first part of January. In addition, a lot of these new federal programs will have to go through a regulations development process. They're going to have to develop sort of the rules of how these funds are going to be used. So there will be federal register notices, there'll be public comment periods. So there's a lot of work that remains to be done. And sometimes that can take minimally 6 months, maybe even a year to work through those processes. So I will stop there and take any specific questions you may have. And I've put you all to sleep. Great. Just kidding. If no one has any questions, that's fine. I would encourage our community planners, a lot of you did submit projects for funding consideration through the Transportation Improvement Program. I would highly encourage you to, if you're not already checking our website for our planning committee materials, I would encourage you to begin doing that. It's important that you guys stay engaged in the process as we work through the programming of these funds. And our next planning committee meeting will be January 12th at 9:30 a.m. And we, as Jen mentioned at the beginning, we are doing hybrid meetings, so you're welcome to listen in remotely. You don't have to attend here in person, but I would certainly encourage you to stay engaged. And make sure that, if you've proposed a project or you're the primary point of contact on a project proposal, that you stay on top of what's going on here, because things are going to happen quickly in the months of January and February. And with that, thanks everybody.
Thank you, Sandy. Okay, so I'm gonna start sharing my screen again, and the next item are updates from CDRPC. There's a number of regional efforts that are starting or underway that CDRPC has been leading the way on. So Mark, if you want to give us your updates on the great work you guys are doing.
Thanks, Jen. In terms of the technical assistance program, we just started a new project with the village of Castleton. We're going to help them sort of get on the right path for their comprehensive planning effort, which is sort of a package project that we've been refining over time, working with a number of communities, Boston, Spa, town of Westerlo in Albany County, town of Guilderland as well. So, just want to encourage folks to take a look at the program and consider any kind of small projects that would be helpful to you that we could help out with to give me a call. Census data updates. I don't have any updates on the urban area criteria. That wasn't in I didn't know I was supposed to talk about that.
No, I put no update because it's just been a standing agenda item, but Teresa informed me that there is no update on that for this meeting.
Right. So we have the 5-year 2016-2020 ACS data release. I mean, I don't know who's going to use that. Everyone's waiting for the decennial census data release. The accuracy of the ACS stuff kind of declines the closer you get to a decennial census. So there's no updates on when the decennial census full data set will be released. We still are in a holding pattern for tentative 2020. The only data that's available now is population and ethnicity data at the county, city, down to the census tract level. But all the additional data will be released hopefully sometime in 22. Another initiative that we're embarking on is broadband planning. Many regions across the state are a little further ahead in their broadband planning work, but our region is no different than others, where we have pockets in both urban and rural areas that lack adequate broadband service, and a problem that was laid bare in the pandemic when everyone had to work remotely. So we're receiving $167,000 from the Northern Border Regional Commission to do broadband work. So we're engaging with stakeholders now to talk about what priorities there may be in individual counties or communities, and hopes to invest that money in something that will translate into the construction of some needed infrastructure at some point in the future. There will be more money coming out for broadband planning. There's money out there now for broadband infrastructure, really focused on what's called the middle mile investments. So we'll be taking a look at that. There's also a companion effort, and I wanted to put this on your radar, that the Department of Public Service is undertaking. They're doing another statewide inventory of broadband access. They're assessing quality and availability. So they are claiming that they'll have, after their inventory is done, address level data about broadband access, which would be extremely helpful for our region, because we currently do not have an inventory really of broadband access that's adequate. They'll be working or want to work with municipalities and counties to help get the word out about their inventory process. I'll just put their website in the chat for you. 1 second here. EmpireStateBroadband.com. They're looking to set up websites for each county as they proceed through their county inventory processes. They really want to have the project wrapped up by March of 22, which I think is extremely ambitious, but we do hope that they're able to get us some good inventory data so we can narrow the scope of what we will consider spending the money that we're going to be receiving on. And then the next one is regional solid waste planning. There have been a variety of fits and starts in terms of regional solid waste. It's an issue that nobody wants to touch because nobody wants a landfill, and we're not going to get to zero waste anytime soon. And there's always tension between what the need is now and what the need should be. But we do know that that trucking our region's waste out to the Rochester area is not necessarily a sustainable solution long term. We have landfills that are closing, and we have an opportunity to enhance, diversion of organics out of the waste stream with the advent of the new regulations for large producers of food waste. So we're talking to stakeholders right now to help frame out sort of a concept of how we can have a regional conversation about solid waste and where we go from here to develop a meaningful plan for that. All right, question, Steve, do you know our CSMA national ranking? I have no idea. We were formerly ranked 46th metro region in the nation. Any update? I don't have any updates on that ranking, unfortunately, but I can look it up for you if it's available. All right, that's it. Just broadband, we may be reaching out to you, and regional solid waste, obviously, we may be reaching out to you. If you have any insights or opinions on either one of those topics, please feel free to reach out to me.
Thanks, Mark. Andrew just commented that our area is ranked 51st. What does CSMA stand for? Okay, we can look that up. Thank you, Mark.
I'm not familiar with that acronym.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Oh, thanks. Rima, you know?
Census Statistical Metropolitan Area.
Okay.
Consolidated Statistical Metropolitan Area. Thank you. I knew that wasn't quite right.
It's an economic strength rating.
Yeah. Got it. Okay. Thank you. All right. So just some, I'll try and get through the rest of these items fairly quickly. We wanted to just touch on Justice 40. This is an executive order that came from the Biden administration. You may have heard of it. There are also, if you Google Justice 40, like a number of nonprofit groups that use Justice 40 in their name. They're not necessarily involved or related to the administration's effort, but it will impact some programs that are funded with federal grants. So it is really just, it's a commitment in making sure that federal investments meet the goal of investing or creating benefits that go to disadvantaged communities, at least 40%. Programs like climate change, clean energy, clean transportation, affordable housing, workforce development, et cetera, are all covered programs. Covered agencies include HUD, Health and Human Services, DOT. So these are all agencies and programs that I know we all work with and we receive federal funding from or grants. So the Office of Management and Budget will be issuing guidance, criteria, definitions, and tools into how to determine how your project may be benefiting disadvantaged communities. But we just want to make everyone aware of this, and I will send out in the notes, I'll include an attachment with some of the information on this. And then we recently wrapped up our first Ditch the Car campaign, and Rima is just going to give a brief overview of the results from that.
Yes. Okay. So, as Jen said, we did our first ever Ditch the Car challenge, and it was sort of a stand-in to replace what would have been a bike to work day challenge, and we skipped that again like we did in 2020 because of the pandemic. So we opened up the Ditch the Car challenge, was open to everyone, and it was open to all types of trips, not just work trips, except that weren't all types of trips that weren't recreational. So, you know, if you were going to the grocery store or going to visit a friend, or going to work, anything that wasn't just, you know, for the sake of going on a bike ride or going for a walk, just, you know, for the sake of doing those activities, then it could count towards the Ditch the Car challenge. And so we developed a website where you could log all of your trips, and we tried to gamify the challenge. So we offered badges, and you could earn a badge by racking up your trips. And some people got really into it. So we got 84 participants this year, and they logged over 1,700 trips, and which totaled 23,400 miles, and burned over 368,100 calories, and saved almost 940 gallons of gas. And that translated to over 18,740 pounds of greenhouse gas emissions from being released. So yeah, I mean, all in all, it was a pretty successful first run. What we're looking to do for next year is sort of combine the Bike to Work challenge and the Ditch the Car challenge, sort of piggyback one with the other. And so instead of just having the one-off Bike to Work challenge, we'll be able to sort of draw out, you know, sort of extend the fun into the summer with the Ditch the Car challenge.
All right. Thank you, Rima.
Yep.
Okay. You know, Sandy mentioned that, you know, a lot of you have submitted projects for consideration for federal aid. This is just an update on our TIP solicitation, the TIP update schedule. Project proposals were due December 3rd. Staff is working to evaluate proposals. We received over 90, and we are aiming to complete the evaluations by the end of the month, and be able to share the evaluations with sponsors in January, and get your feedback, ask questions, and then finalize them and move on to the programming part. Similarly, UPWP update is also ongoing. We will be evaluating project proposals, both from our members and communities, as well as projects and studies that have been proposed by staff this month, over the next couple of weeks. And we'll have a draft UPWP in February, and we anticipate a new UPWP being adopted for March 2022. We have a lot of consultant contracts that we are managing right now. We're doing a number of planning studies and projects throughout the region. So all of those are in the spreadsheet, the status of planning initiatives. So I won't go through each of them because you do have these spreadsheets, and you can take a look at them. One project I will just highlight is the bus lane feasibility study, which has been going through the fall and is continuing. There were a number of pop-up events that the consultant, CDTC, and CDTA staff all coordinated on. So they were out at bus stops in Albany and Schenectady, surveying transit riders and other folks that were passing by and talking about the study. There's a really great project website, and that project is moving along well. The Patron Creek Greenway feasibility study, right now the consultant is doing an alignment analysis. So they have proposed a couple of different potential alignments to connect the 6 Mile Waterworks Park in Albany with the Albany waterfront. And that project is expected to wrap up in March. So that's moving along pretty quickly and pretty well. Also, if you missed, most of you were invited to focus group meetings for the Smart Communities Toolbox. There is a project website, cdtcsmartmobility.com, that's been set up. If you are interested in this project, which is really about how we can leverage technology to improve operations and efficiency and accessibility in the transportation system, please visit the website. There are recordings of our focus group meetings. There are some survey questions that we're asking folks, and we are interested in your feedback as potential users and implementers of technology projects. And I also wanted, there's no slide for this, but I had sent out an email and a link to a form about trying to collect information on other planning initiatives that are going on in the region. There hasn't been a huge response. I will send out the link again with the notes from today's meeting, but really it's just to, we do a pretty good job of tracking the CDTC and Cdrpc planning studies, but we are, on advisory committees for a number of other studies that are funded by other agencies and other organizations that are really interesting. And there may be things to learn from them that we could share with the group. So I wanted to, build upon our CDTC and Cdrpc planning initiative spreadsheet to include other projects. So if your community is doing a sustainability plan, a resiliency plan, solid waste plan, housing plans, things that we don't typically do here at CDTC, but are related to planning and of interest. If you are working on something that you think you want to include in that collection of projects, let me know. It's just for having an idea of what people are working on and knowing who we can go to ask questions, as other communities may want to pursue similar types of projects and studies. There are some upcoming training opportunities and workshops. The Creative Placemaking Leadership Summit is April 18th through 22nd in Schenectady, and I will include a link to that event. And of course, our New Visions virtual learning series is continuing. I am in the process of developing the 2022 schedule, and you can find other training, webinar, and workshop opportunities both on Cdrpc and CDTC's website. Cdrpc has an archive of their planning and zoning webinars that you can find there. And like I said, I am working on the full schedule for 2022 for the learning series, trying to make it very useful for our planners in the region, provide more how-tos, more tools, more resources, highlight communities that are working on projects that are related to a lot of the goals and the principles that are in New Visions. So I know today we heard from Sandy on the bill, but next Tuesday, we'll have a webinar just to go through the details of the recently passed bipartisan infrastructure bill and how it could impact the capital region. January 18th, we'll have a webinar. We're partnering with CDTA and the City of Troy to do a how to work with CDTA on transit stop and site design. So this comes up often. So really talking about coordination and getting into the details of how that works. And show some success stories. And then February, we are planning a webinar on air quality and transportation planning and modeling to go through the process of how we model air quality impacts of transportation projects, kind of a, pulling back the curtain on how we do that and what our model entails and the data that we use, and also looking at projects that are ongoing and are considering air quality impacts, or their main goal is to reduce air quality impacts from transportation. Okay, so that was a lot, and I'm sorry if I rushed through that, but I know everyone is very busy this time of year. So our next Community Planner Forum meeting is scheduled for Thursday, March 17th. For now, we're going to say it's going to be virtual. We're unsure of how things will go over the next couple months, if we'll change our meeting policies or not. But with that, I will see if anyone has any updates that they want to share, comments, questions. Did I miss anything that you were hoping to hear about today? Okay. So our schedule for next year will go out, we'll meet March, June, September, December, like we have been. And I look forward to seeing you all next year. I hope everyone has a healthy and happy holiday and new year.
Thank you, Jen.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care. You too, Jen.
Happy